start streaming. We're live on YouTube in theory, and then here we'll be live on Facebook.
A little spinning wheel.
Yeah.
You're welcome, everybody. This is this is Pej from Beginnings Treatment Centers. I'm here today with the ever so fantastic Earl Hightower. He is a world-renowned interventionist. We are going to be talking a little bit about the difference between. Earl, say hello to the audience.
Hello, everybody.
Can we see? I mean, I only see myself right here. Okay, I see.
That's
All
fine.
right. Earl's going to be talking about the difference between treatment and recovery. There is a big difference, correct?
Sure.
Okay, do you want to tell us a little bit about it today?
Sure.
And then we'll also take some questions after that. Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody. So, my opinion on the difference between treatment and recovery. The difference is significant, in my opinion. Treatment is for people who have resistance to recovery, people who are not interested in it, can't hang on to it. For some reason, it eludes them, whether by choice or by the depth of their addiction, their difficulty. If somebody wants recovery and is reaching out for it, is asking for help, that's easy. You don't take them to treatment. You detox them if they need it. And you start taking them to meetings. You engage them in the recovery process. They're willing, they're able. There's no point in going through a whole bunch of stuff. Treatment really is designed to address an individual's resistance to ongoing recovery. That's the whole point of it, is to take somebody who doesn't want it, isn't interested, can't get it, whatever. There's a block. There's something between them and the ability to grab a hold of this life-saving opportunity that they've shown in their daily life they have a desperate need for. So that's what treatment is. Treatment is clinical in nature. It's educational in nature. I always say that the best treatment that you find, if you were to look at it like a bullseye, the bullseye ring is recovery education, teaching people the tools to help them stay stopped, give them information about what it means to be in recovery. How do you get a sponsor? How do you ask? What is a sponsor? Why do you get one? How do you go ask somebody to do that? Really, the practical application of the tools of recovery. What is a meeting? What is it for? Why do we go to them? What are the different types? What's the etiquette that one engages in when one goes to a meeting? Asking all these kinds of questions and getting that kind of education in a treatment continuum to prepare people to bridge from treatment into recovery. So that's kind of the 10 ring of treatment is that. The clinical aspect, which I consider to be a vital, it's hand in hand, recovery and clinical work in the treatment environment. The clinical work is to sit with people, ask them how they're doing, ask them how they're feeling, and they talk to you about their feelings, and they do it in groups, and they do it in individual settings, and they do. And what you find is you uncover their resistance or their unwillingness to ongoing recovery, and that becomes really the treatment plan. So education coupled with clinical tools to address resistance, you get a person prepared, less resistant, and armed with the tools they need to effectively bridge into a completely different community with a completely different agenda. One is about addressing resistance, and the other is about the actions involved in staying stopped. What does one do to turn one's life around if they suffer from whatever you want to call it these days, substance use disorder, addiction, alcoholism, whatever you want to call it. That problem and the community that you go to help address that on a daily basis. So the recovering community is really about how do I stay stopped? And that community is designed to take you through a process centered around the 12 steps in most cases. I mean, I absolutely acknowledge that there's more than one way to go about this. There's a lot of different paths.
Holistic.
There's holistic, smart recovery. I don't know if moderation management still exists, but if it does,
You're old school, Earl.
yeah,
I think they probably renamed it something different now.
I'm going to talk about what I know. I'm not going to talk about what I don't know. I will acknowledge there are other ways to go about it. Good luck, God bless with those. This is what I know. And this community, it centers around the 12 steps, which is this process that you read about, and then the actions that you take as you go through this to bring about change in your life. So that you take a contrary action and you get a contrary result. Hopefully that contrary result is that you become comfortable sober. That's the idea. How do I get comfortable sober? And because this isn't about stopping. If this was about stopping drinking and using, detox centers would be kicking out winners. 72 hours and free, man. What are you doing? Not drinking. What are you doing? I'm not smoking crack. Doing that all day, not smoking crack. Detox centers would accomplish that if it was really just about that physical phenomenon of the physical addiction to the substance. You break that physical addiction, you'd be good to go. But we all know that's not the case. People who try that, rapid opiate detox, on and on and on, who just, kick and back out there at it, that the relapse rate is through the roof on that. I mean, the amount of people that successfully do that is negligible. And if you're going to roll the dice on your life, I would suggest that's not a good roll of dice. The odds are way, way, way against you. So, the idea, if the idea is to stay stopped, I'm going to have to address the mind and the body, the full aspect of the disease, the obsession of the mind and the allergy of the body. Because the reason people detox and then use again is they address the physical, but they don't address the mental. And the 12 steps are really designed to bring about an awareness that comes through working this contrary action, these 12 steps. And so I'm told. That make it possible for one to become comfortable sober. Because if you can't get comfortable sober, you're not going to stay that way. The screws just tighten and tighten and tighten, and ultimately the individual relapses, and here we go again. And because we know the disease to be progressive, we know that each time a person falls back into relapse, then hopefully gets back into detox, tries to get clean again, it's harder each time. And there is that point when you've made it back 6-8 times, and then there's that time you can't get back. And that's the fear that anybody who suffers with addiction lives with, is that fear that they're not going to make it.
What's a good amount of time that you think somebody should be in treatment for? Like, as far as breaking the resistance, obviously Rome wasn't built in a day. It's not going to happen right away. What's like a good amount of time that you've seen success stories often go through treatment that got long-term recovery?
Well, as an interventionist, I put people in treatment all the time, so I see. You know what I mean? And people will suggest, well, that this is anecdotal information, to which I reply, okay, this is anecdotal information, but at what point, how many stories do I need to have? 2,500, 3,000 before it's no longer anecdotal? What I see is that the longer people stay in treatment, the better chance they have of staying stopped. You don't get to treatment overnight. Nobody goes out and, very few people, less than 1% of people who come into treatment have been using for under a year. People use 5, 10, 15 years, and they come into treatment and they go, hey, 30 days, that's all I'm willing to do. And it was a beating trying to get them to commit to that.
Right.
And in that first 30 days, one of the goals is to try to get them to do another 30, and then to try to get them to do another 30.
Right.
My belief is that 90 days of treatment is should be the initial suggestion to an individual. 90 days, because it's peeling an onion. You know what I mean? I will give it to people who say, look, I've been here for 30 days and I feel so much better.
Right.
I believe them that that's the truth, that they do feel better. I also know that if they stay another 30 days, they're going to go, wow, at 30 days, I really felt like I was clicking on, firing on all cylinders. I had no idea.
Right. The fog is starting to clear.
I was as sick as I was.
Yeah.
I mean, I have heard it said to individuals that I know that, if you knew how sick you were when you got here, you wouldn't have bothered to come. That it's
right.
People get that lost in the weeds. So I think it's really, really valuable to give this a minute, give it time. And I know that people come to treatment when you're out there banging away doing your thing, and you come into treatment. What you're doing is you're surrendering self-will. You're surrendering your own self-determination, which is a very frightening thing for an addict to do. And you're turning your will over to people you don't really know,
Right.
who are running some treatment center, or or that you got to turn yourself over to, and you're going to do what they say for the next 30, 60, 90 days.
Right.
That's a terribly difficult thing.
It's hard to trust the process.
It's also a life-saving thing to
Yes.
do, is to just go, you know what? Everything in me says go right, but you're saying go left, so that's what I'm going to do. And I see that, the places that I utilize, the places that I get involved with, I see great things happen to people. It's when it clicks, there's nothing like it. Watching somebody when you're seeing the lights come back on, it's a beautiful thing.
Awesome. Awesome.
And I've forgotten completely what I was talking about now. So ask me another question.
Well, actually, we wanted to open it up for questions, but before we do, I do want to say that we have a podcast now. It's called The Sober Grind. It's with me and Austin Armstrong. It's on weekly. If you can subscribe to it on iTunes, you just type in Sober Grind on iTunes in the podcast section, or on Google Play, or any kind of platform that has any kind of podcast. Even on YouTube, if you put in Sober Grind, you can listen to our weekly show. And then also, if there's any questions today that you'd like to ask us, Earl's open for questions. We got a few minutes. Is there anything out there yet?
There are no questions, but you two are getting lots of love.
Lots of love.
Can't get too much of that.
No. So there's.
I have a question.
Yes. What's the question?
Just something that I hear often. What is your opinion when someone asks or tries to say that treatment is just spending lots of money to get introduced to the big book or NA or whatever?
I hear the bleeding deacons, of recovery often say, so and so just got themselves a $30,000 big book, or right, they're talking about the cost of treatment, and that AA is for they should just come to AA like they the good old timers did.
Yeah.
Right? Well, my experience is this, that if I'm not mistaken, there's a quote attributed to the 12-step recovery process. They talk about the jitter joints, and they talk about taking people to the hospital and sobering them up, and getting, and they're referring specifically to detox. But I'll explain it to you in this way in terms of intervention, and engaging in processes prior to being in recovery, getting sober, getting a sponsor, going to meetings, staying stopped, right? Doing it that way, shaking it out in meetings. I know that there's people that still do that. There are a lot of people that go straight. I can't take it anymore. I can't live like this. They make the phone call. The 12-step call comes out, and off they go to meetings. Never to be seen in a bar again. But back in the beginning of AA, they realized that, they said, you got to wait. You got to let somebody hit their bottom. And what they discovered pretty early on in the process, that the bottom for a lot of people was dead. That was the bottom. And that was when Mr. Johnson invented in Minneapolis, out of Minnesota, the Johnson model of intervention. And that was when they started trying to raise the bottom up by going to people and introducing them to the reality of their own lives through family members, loved ones, people who cared about the individual. Over time, that model has evolved as our understanding and awareness of the impact of these kind of processes, the impact that they have on people.
And that's the model that you use.
Yeah, the model that I use. It's a variation of the Johnson model, and it's a process. It's not an event like people like to call it. It's a very drawn out process where you really, really prepare to, in a loving and respectful way, go to someone and let them know that they're loved. People are very, very worried about them. The people who love an alcoholic and addict get to have a voice too, and they have a right to step up and say, I love you and I'm worried about you, and I have facts to support my concern, and I know that this is your alcoholism or your drug addiction, and I want us to go get some help. And what that help is to take you someplace to break down your resistance to ongoing recovery, because up to this point you showed no interest in stopping. Forget I'm trying to get sober but I can't. But you have no interest in it at all, and you've overdosed 3 times, you've been in the hospital twice, you got a DUI, you got a criminal case pending. I mean, the wreckage is mounting, and the person's just blowing it off and going on about their business. there are people that ultimately end up, and there are also people who simply cannot stop.
They have to
There's
get
just
stopped and
that
then-
simple individual who goes, yes, I'm an alcoholic. Yes, it's destroying my life. Yes, I would love to live any other way than this. And I'm going to go have a drink right now because I can't stop.
Yeah.
There are those people, and you got to take them. What are we supposed to do?
Try and
Sit
not-
back and watch him die and say, well, we were there for the God shot, but apparently God said no this time. I don't think it's like that. I think that we have the ability to intercede on that person's behalf and expose them to another possibility, a way to be able to, with the support of the medical community, with the support of the 12-step community, stay stopped. Get them on solid ground where now you can have the conversation with somebody who's clear-headed, who's not in the throes of an active addiction, detox and sit them up and say, do you still hold the same position that you would like to continue to drink? More often than not, the answer is no.
We have a bunch of questions that just came through. That was a great answer.
That was a wonderful
All right.
answer. Good job. Okay, what's
I just made all
I
that up.
saw a question from Cindy. Go ahead.
So Cindy was the first question, and
Hi,
she's
Cindy.
asking, how do you help a client who has been traumatized from a poor experience with another treatment facility?
That's an excellent question.
How
do you help-
Cindy's an excellent
How do you
person.
help a client who has been traumatized by a very negative treatment experience? And the answer is gently. You help them, you gently explain to them that was that experience, that this industry is like any other industry. It has good people, it has very self-serving people. It has great, well-intentioned, well-motivated treatment systems that are all about service. And then there are systems that are all about a person's just a number and they want to warehouse them and make some money. That, it's all here. And the very unfortunate truth about things right now is that online, when you go online, just a civilian goes online. I got a son who's addicted, and I go online and I'm looking for treatment. The sinners and saints all look the same on the internet. The website said all looks the same. You can't tell one from the other. They all know the rap to get you in, but the service is fundamentally different. So the best thing that you can do is, when you've got somebody who's had a horrible experience, is, first of all, in my opinion, is to acknowledge that they had a horrible experience. Make sure that that person feels heard. That, I hear you. You had a horrible experience, and I agree with you. You did. That was horrible. And assure them that what you're offering is something fundamentally different, and it better be. So when you recommend someplace, it needs to be someplace you've been, you know the people, you've walked through, you see what clinical services are being offered, you look at what they sell in what order, you know what I mean? Is the first thing they're talking about money, or is the first thing they're talking about the programming that they offer to try to help somebody? Do they have good discharge planning? Is their admissions department independent of business development? How are things set up? And you have to have somebody who's experienced in the industry to be able to advocate. So, because at that point, if you're working with a client that has had a horrible past treatment experience but needs treatment, you have to now advocate on a split level. You have to advocate for that individual, but you also have to advocate for your industry. You have to be able to say, no, there is good treatment. There are people who will do their best for you. And you also have to really talk to the client to find out when they say they've had a terrible treatment experience. What that could mean is, I went to treatment, I wasn't ready, so I decided that everybody there was a bad person so I could get drunk. That does happen.
You mean some addicts, alcoholics are dishonest?
Yeah.
Really?
There may be.
What a concept.
There may be something. Explore as deeply as you can.
Yeah. What's the next question?
Okay, so Joshua, that was a great answer again. Sorry. Joshua asked 2 questions. One was, do you believe that being an addict is really classified as an illness?
Do I believe that being
An
addict means you have an illness? Yes, I do.
Okay, and his next question.
And the reason is,
Oh.
medical minds, people, addictionologists, people that I know, doctors that I know, that I have tremendous faith in as a result of years of interaction with them, have broken the disease model down to me in very certain terms. And yes, as a result of a significant amount of experience with people who are far more knowledgeable than I personally am about this, I believe that the disease concept is very real.
Okay. What's the next one?
His other question was, I've heard you speak many times in meetings, Pej and Callie, and due to that, something stuck to me, and I picked up 9 months sober. But what really is recovery, and how do you benefit from it in the long run?
What is recovery and how do you benefit from it in the long run? That was a question to both of us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Would you like to fire away at that?
You go first, Will.
Oh.
You're the expert.
Great.
I learned from you.
All right. So, what is recovery? Recovery is an awakening, and it is a process. It's an ongoing process. I was told early on in the game that your life takes a lifetime to live, and that doesn't change because you have addiction, or because whether you're suffering from addiction or recovering from it, or alcoholism, or both. Recovery is a process, and it is an awakening that occurs. It's an unfolding. It's an evolution that occurs a day at a time as you put these days together. The beauty, I think, of recovery, is that you get your life back one day at a time. Addiction takes it from you one day at a time. Every day that a person is in active addiction, they're out of their life. They're not living their life. They're not present and participating in the life that's right there in front of them. They're encapsulated in the prison of addiction. Right? So it kills you one day at a time. Recovery gives you life one day at a time. It allows you to be back in this moment, to live life right now. Right? So, I'm a voracious liver. I like life. I like being in the world. I'm very passionate about living fully and completely, because I see it all as a gift. Guys that live like I've lived die in their late 20s. I'm far beyond that, and remarkably happy.
Good.
So I hope that answers.
No, it's perfect.
Okay, good. Yeah, wait.
Oh,
And you.
You said, what is recovery, and what's the last part of that question?
Basically, it was, what is recovery?
what really is recovery, and how do you benefit from it in the long run?
Okay, so what is recovery to me, and how do I benefit from it in the long run? I'm benefiting right now. I mean, obviously, when you say the word recovery, you're recovering from something, and that's that. That I was in full-on addiction. I was out there. I was in the trenches. I was dying. I was ruining my life. I was ruining other people's lives. And at this point now that I'm in recovery, I just go above and beyond in trying to be of service to people and get out of self, and have a different type of lifestyle. And I think Earl and I were talking earlier. We went to lunch and we were talking about how we love our lives and we're happy in our lives, but we don't have fun. And I think it's because we're always on the grind of trying to help. And I don't know about Earl, but often I'm told, like, Pej, you ought to focus on some self care. And obviously, if I am recovering, I do want to think about myself too and have some fun. I think we need to have more fun. We do have fun in recovery, definitely. I do a lot of fun activities. I just don't do enough. So recovery is an ongoing process. As Earl said, it's ever evolving. It's a beautiful experience.
So the next time somebody asks me to come sit in a hot room and talk to a computer screen, I'm going to go outside and stand in the rain.
All right.
Oh, Patti O says Earl is a great representative of recovery.
Do you know
Hi,
who Patti O is?
Patti O is a hero of mine.
Sponsor.
Yeah, there's no one better.
We love you, Patti.
Yes, we do.
The next question. This is Patrick Smith. What should a family do if their loved one says they want to leave treatment early?
Oh.
Good question.
Yes, that is a great question. And hopefully, if you've worked with an interventionist or you've worked with an effective admissions team in a treatment center, you're prepared. You're already prepared for this, because it's more often going to occur than not occur. That you're going to get a call from your loved one, and for whatever reason, and they're endless, the reasons that are given, why they're going to leave treatment, why they want you to come pick them up, why they're leaving on their own, why they're going to be coming home. My suggestion, and remember, this is in general terms. Given a specific case, I'm going to come up with different solutions. But in general, use whatever ammunition you've got to check them. If they say they're leaving, the best thing you can do is to say to them, look, I love you, and with all due respect, we don't support that.
Cut them off too.
You know, that we love you enough to tell you no. You're not, really, where are you going?
Yeah.
Because you're not coming here. No. You're welcome here when your treatment team says you're ready to go. Not you. It's like the inmate doesn't run the asylum. We don't,
So good.
we don't do, you know what I mean? That's a lot of times we have to defend our loved ones when they're in the grips of an illness and they're not in a position to defend themselves.
That's right.
So we do our best. It's a fine line. You have to do your best not to trespass in somebody's own process, their own, unfolding of this endeavor. But also there are times when you have to step in and say, I love you and no. And families need to learn that those words go together in the same sentence very, very easily. I love you and no. No. That's a horrible idea to leave treatment. Because I've heard countless reasons to leave. Only one person ever told me the truth as to why because everybody leaves for one reason.
To get loaded.
They don't want to stay stopped anymore, right? And this whole stopping
One more
thing
round.
is too much,
Yes.
right? And that's basically what they're doing, is not using at that point. They're not into recovery yet. And the impulse has got them and they can't shake it. I went, and this woman was leaving treatment, and I walked up to her and I said, what's up? And she said, I'm leaving. I said, why? And she goes, because I want to get high. And I went, boy, do I love you. That was awesome. I said, and get it. I completely get it. But I just got to ask you one question. Are you sitting there thinking, I'm going to go get loaded because I desperately need the full exhale? I need that shot. She was a junkie to the bone, right? She needed that because she just felt so tightened up because the surrender hadn't hit yet. You know what I mean? She hadn't surrendered to the process. So she was still, phaser shields up. She was still fighting it, and it was just wearing her down. And she needed the release, the letting go. And she hadn't found it in the process yet. So she was going to go back to dope to get the letting go. And I said, that you're looking for, that release. She goes, yes, that's it. I go, I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you this, but you already had it.
Yeah.
And you only get one. We chase that from the beginning.
That feeling.
All the way to standing at our own graveside.
Yeah.
We can't get it there anymore. It's ahead. We have to hang on. And when we fully surrender to moving this direction, blow the bridge up behind us, then it comes. That release, that full exhale takes place sober. And that's the beginning.
Yeah.
That we're trying to get everybody to just hang on long enough to exhale with us.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for your questions. If there's any other questions, we'll try to answer them later. There's also our Facebook page, Ask an Addiction Specialist. You can go on there. There are always specialists that are readily available to answer any kind of questions that you have, professionals in the field. And also, don't forget the sober grind. We had a lot of fun today. It's nice to have you here today, Earl. It's one of my very most favorite people in the world. And over and out. What did I put?
God bless.
Right
Take
here?
care, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Right here?
Well, no.
Blind leading the blind.